People think I was afraid to die alone. That wasn't it at all. I was afraid of what they would do to me while I was still living. There's a big difference. My name is Elowen Vance Sterling. I am 104 years old. I have lived a long time. I've been a daughter, a wife, and a teacher of books for a long time now. I've lived alone in a house that is very quiet, very big, and entirely mine. I remember 1940. I was only 18 then. That was the year I started making my own choices. I've been making them every day for over 80 years. But then, my daughter Clementine decided I needed help. Clementine is 78 years old. Even at 78 now, she still worries about her mother. She came to my house with her husband, Thatcher. He's a good man, but he's very stiff. Clementine sat at my table. She had a little notebook. She said, "Mom, we've been thinking. It is time to talk about your options." Options. I do not like that word. When people say options, they usually mean they have already made a choice for you. They want to manage me, like a problem to be fixed. But I am not a problem. I am still Elowen. Before I tell you what happened next in my daughter's house, I want to know who is sitting across the table from me today. I am 104 years old, and I am speaking to you from my quiet home in America. But where are you, and how many years of life have you gathered so far? Please, write to me in the comments. Tell me how old you are and what part of the world you call home. I may be old, but I still love to meet new friends. I decided to try Clementine's first idea. I packed a small bag and moved into her house for 8 weeks. I wanted to be fair. I wanted to show her that I could be a good mother, even at 104. Clementine's house is very warm. It smells like lavender and expensive soap. My great-grandchildren, little Sylvie and Caspian, are loud and full of joy. Sometimes Caspian would sit near my feet while I told him stories about the old days. I liked that. I had forgotten how much life a child brings into a room. But in that house, I quickly became a guest. Not because they were mean. No, they were too kind. But they had a routine. Everything was fast and timed by clocks. Dinner was at 6 o'clock sharp. I have never been a 6 o'clock dinner person. Alaric and I always ate late, when the world was quiet. But here, I ate at 6 and smiled, because it was easier for everyone else. I still wake up at 4 in the morning. I've done this for 90 years. But in the guest room, I would lie very still in the dark. I didn't want to wake anyone. I didn't want the floor to creak. One night, I heard Thatcher's voice through the wall. He was talking about the morning schedule and how to work around the bathroom problem. I realized then I was the problem. I was like a piece of old furniture that didn't quite fit in a new room. Everyone was walking around me, trying not to bump into me. I wasn't a person there. I was a schedule problem. That night, I cried a little bit, very quietly, so the lavender room wouldn't hear me. I told Clementine I wanted to go home. She looked sad, but she also looked relieved. So, we tried her second idea, a helper named Mildred Thorne. Mildred arrived on a Monday. She was 62 years old, very neat, and very serious. She did not smile much. She was there to take care of me from 8 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon. Mildred was not a bad person. She was just professional. She cleaned my kitchen so well that I could not find my favorite tea tin for 3 days. She made me lunch with no salt and no flavor because she said it was good for my heart. At 104, I think my heart knows what it likes, and it likes a little bit of salt. She called me Mrs. Sterling, not Elowen, not Mom, not Grandma. For 40 years, I was the heart of this home. I made lunches for my children at that counter. I danced with Alaric in that very kitchen when we were young and happy. That room is full of my life, but when Mildred was there, it felt like a stranger was walking through a church while the music was still playing. It felt wrong. Then there was the money. Mildred's agency cost a lot of money. I looked at my bank book one night. I've always carried my own weight. I've never wanted to be a burden. I realized that if Mildred stayed, I would run out of money, or Clementine would have to pay for me. I told Clementine to stop the agency. She cried and asked, "But Mom, then what? What will you do?" I didn't have an answer yet. I only knew that I couldn't live in a house where even my own kitchen felt like it belonged to someone else. I needed my home back. I needed to be Elowen again. Clementine had one last idea. She asked me to just look at a place called the Evergreens. It was a big, bright building for people my age. She said it was safe. She said I would never be lonely. I went there on a Tuesday. The floors were very shiny. The walls were painted a cheerful yellow. A young woman named Adeline met us at the door. She had a big smile and a blue clipboard. "Hello, sweetie," she said to me. I looked at her. I am 104 years old. I have lived through wars and hard times. I have taught thousands of books. I am not a sweetie. I am a woman who deserves to be called by my name. Adeline showed us a room. It was small and very clean. On the wall, there was a board that told everyone what to do. It said 9 o'clock exercise, 10 o'clock crafting, 12 o'clock lunch, 2 o'clock movie time, 4 o'clock social hour. I stood there and thought about my life. I've been making my own choices since 1940. For over 80 years, I decided when to wake up, when to read, and when to be quiet. Now, a girl with a clipboard was going to tell me that at 2 o'clock. I must watch a movie. I have never, not once in my life, had a social hour on a schedule. On the drive home, I looked out the window. I told Clementine, "Not yet." She was quiet. She was worried, but I knew the truth. My right to choose is not a toy. It is the last thing I own. After you lose your husband, your strength, and your old friends, the right to decide what you do at 2 o'clock is the most important thing in the world. I wasn't ready to give my life to a clipboard. I was going back to my big, quiet house. Even if I didn't know what would happen next, I was going home to be free. I was back in my big, quiet house. I was happy to be free, but I will tell you a secret. I was also a little bit lonely. The silence in the hallway felt very heavy. One morning, I went outside to get the mail. Getting the mail is a big event when you are 104. I walked slowly, using my silver cane. That was when I saw her. A young woman named Winona had moved in next door. She was wrestling with a heavy bag of groceries, a stroller, and a little boy named Caspian. Caspian was 3 years old, and he had decided that he did not want to walk. He sat down on the sidewalk and made his face very grumpy. Winona looked like she wanted to cry. She had only 2 hands, but she needed 3. I knew that look. I had worn that same look many years ago when Clementine was small. I leaned on my cane and said, "Can I hold something for you?" She looked surprised. Then she handed me a small paper bag. It was light, just some bread and apples. I held it carefully. She picked up Caspian, opened the door, and finally, everyone was inside. "I'm so sorry," she said. "I am a mess. I am Elowen," I told her. "And sometimes being a mess is just part of being alive." She laughed. It was a beautiful, honest sound. Winona was 31. She was a writer, but she had lost her job. She was all alone with her 2 children, Sylvie and Caspian. She had no one to call when the baby was sick or when she felt tired. I recognized her loneliness. It was the same shape as mine, even though she was young and I was old. We started small. Sometimes she would knock on my door. Sylvie, who was 8, would sit at my table and do her homework while I had my tea. She asked me if I remembered the old days. I told her stories, and she listened with big, bright eyes. I wasn't Mrs. Sterling to them. I wasn't a problem. I was just Elowen, the neighbor who had enough time to listen. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was needed again. By the time spring arrived, my house didn't feel too big or too quiet anymore. It felt full. Winona helped me with the heavy grocery bags. In return, I watched Caspian for an hour so she could go to her job interviews. Sylvie, who is now 9, comes over every afternoon. She lost a tooth last week and ran to my door first to show me. I felt so proud, as if she were my own granddaughter. One day last January, I fell. It happened in the hallway, near my books. I lay there on the floor for a long time, looking at the ceiling. I thought, this is it. This is what Clementine warned me about. But then, I felt the strength in my arms. I reached out and grabbed the edge of the bookshelf. I used my silver cane and my own stubborn heart to pull myself up, inch by inch. I was tired, and my legs shaky, but I stood up. I didn't tell Clementine for 2 weeks, but I told Winona. She didn't cry or get scared. She just brought me a warm cup of tea and sat with me. When Clementine visited yesterday, she stopped at the door. She saw me sitting in my big chair, helping Sylvie with her poem. She saw the light in my eyes. "Mom," she said softly. You look like yourself again. I am 104 years old. I know that my body has its own clock, and one day it will stop. I am not a child, and I am not a problem to be fixed. I am Elowen. I made my own lunch today. I am still the boss of 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Don't go somewhere to be managed before you have tried to be a neighbor. Open your door. Hold a paper bag for someone. You might find that 2 people struggling together are much lighter than 1 person struggling alone. I am still here, in my house, with my late dinner and my books, and for me, that is exactly enough. I am 104, and I am still here because of a simple knock on a door. If you think someone needs to hear this today, please share it with them. And if you'd like to hear more from my library of stories, subscribe to stay with me